Dr. Buggie. He'll talk about track centering alignment on 5 1/4-inch disk drives.
Okay. Let's see. Oh. Okay, yeah, my name is Stephen Buggie, and I first attended KansasFest in '96. Then I was away for 17 years because it conflicted with college teaching in the summer. And then in '93, I quit teaching a summer session. I've been coming to KansasFest ever since. Let's see, I've been active in Apple IIe since 1990. I teach at the University of New Mexico branch campus in Gallup, New Mexico. My packet that I've passed around has 3 things in it. It has a floppy disk with the main software that I'll be talking about. It's track center alignment software from Aptos. And it goes way, way back. In fact, I'd say it's one of the oldest softwares for Apple II that exists. Charles Suter wrote it in 1980, which makes it 39 years old. And I would guess that 39 is probably the dividing point in age for people attending the conference. Half of us are older than 39, and half are younger than 39. I think that Charles Suter deserves some recognition for his courage in modifying the disk drive at the time when he did, because I think that the disk 2 drive came out around 77. Do I have that correct? 77? Well, I know I've read somewhere that it cost $400.
78.
Oh, 78. Well, it's even more extreme then. He was doing this severe modification to the floppy drive at the time when the drive had only been on the market for 2 years, probably voided any warranty that existed on it. But the modification that he made is something that just about every floppy drive is going to need at some point or another. The 5 1/4-inch drives have a tendency to get out of alignment, and they need this adjustment. Okay, so the floppy disk, it has documentation on the front side of the disk, my 17-page essay that expands on Charles Suter's very brief instructions that are included with the software. The back side is the alignment software itself, and we'll see the disk directory for that. I've left a few other things on the disk, even though they don't relate to today's topic. But the alignment software is there on the back side. There is another disk in here, which is a DVD video disc, and it's not really related to my talk, but I decided to put it in there anyway because it does connect closely to KansasFest. 3 years ago on the giveaway table, I found a VHS video tape that was called Apple II Review. It was filmed at the Moscone Conference Center in San Francisco. It was produced in 1993, and it's a really great video. I think 1993, some might say, would be the high point of the Apple II. That is, the GS had been out for about 6 or 7 years, and on this video they talk about all of the recently released software at that time. You'll see celebrities of the Apple II world on this video. Let's see, Tony Diaz, who is a major organizer of the conference. It looks like he hasn't arrived yet, but I've seen a name tag upstairs for him. Roger Wagner, our keynote speaker from last year, he is on there. And Randy Brandt, one of the co-authors of AppleWorks. And there are probably others, maybe even some people who are in the room right now are on that video. And also, everybody looks 26 years younger than they are today. I wish I too could have been in that audience. Let me mention something else. We're filming all of the presentations to be put up on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you can see them from last year and some earlier years too. And I think that KansasFest has an invisible audience up there that closely follows KansasFest, but maybe they can't be here in person because of the expense or complications with work scheduling. But if anyone watching this on YouTube would like to get this packet, just send me a postcard. It'll be sent for free. Stephen Buggie, University of New Mexico, Gallup, NM 87301. I'll send it to you by return mail. The third thing that is inside of your envelope is a paper sheet that I prepared mostly for those who maybe are not here, and maybe you don't even see it on the YouTube thing. But I've shortened the lecture down to the bare essentials here. Some of the screens will be printed on the front and back of this one, so that I think that if somebody gets this packet, they could do the realignment by themselves, even if they've missed today's session. Okay, let me see here. Okay, what does track center alignment mean? Well, it means that, first of all, the tracks on computer disks, even going back to the very earliest ones, like 5 1/4, are very, very narrow, concentric circles on the disk. I think that we see on the floppies 48 tracks per inch. That's for 5 1/4 inch disks. I'm sure for the 3.5 and other more modern disks, they're even smaller. And the alignment is good if those circles, the tracks, are exactly in the same position on the drive that recorded the disk as they are on the drive that is reading the disk. If they're off slightly, then a disk error might happen, or maybe the disk completely crashes. So the goal is to make those tracks match the drive that recorded them. This applies to all 5 1/4 inch disks, the Disk 2, and the other Apple 5 1/4 inch drives, Unidisc 5.25, and the Apple 5.25. My favorite of the Apple drives is the Unidisc 5.25, and my reason for that is that they have socketed chips in there. It's very, very similar to the platinum gray Apple 5.25 drive, but that board, the analog board, they're soldered in, and I love socketed chips so that you can move them around and easily replace them. The half-height clones, we had a bunch of those up there in the giveaway thing, and I think a lot of users don't appreciate the half-height clones. They're made by various manufacturers, and some of them are really excellent. And the floppy disk that is in your packet, I've recorded on what I consider my very finest 5 1/4 inch drive. I believe it's a Teac brand, and this one I think has a hysteresis synchronous motor in it, which is the type of motor that electric clocks that ran on AC all had, and its drive speed I think is always perfect. But anyway, and the adjustment on that drive is about as close as I can get it. So if you have any trouble playing this disc, don't blame the disk, blame the drive that you're using, that it needs some adjustment. Okay, let's see. Let's wait, didn't I already do that? Oh, let's see. Oh, there of course are some of the drives. Who needs to have the Disk 2 described? That, I think from its color, looks like a Unidisc 5.25, and this is one of the half-height clones. The Aptos software that is on this is in the public domain. Joe Cohn, one of the celebrities of KansasFest, what did I say, KansasFest? No. KansasFest 96. Joe Cohn was the star of that conference. He checked, it was one of his projects to check on software to see whether it could be released into public domain, and he did check it way back then, 23 years ago. It has been in the public domain ever since. So it can be copied and distributed without any problems. Whoops, wait, another one. Oh. Let's see, I already mentioned about the floppy disk, 17-page essay. The author, Charles Suter, had his documentation as well, but it was relatively brief. I think it might be about 3 or 4 pages. You'll see it on the floppy. But like all college professors, we like lengthy explanations. Better to explain too much than to explain too little. So my 17-page essay hopefully will answer any questions that you might have about this procedure. Let's see. Okay, what do you need to do it? It's the most important thing is the floppy disk itself. That's why I've given a copy to everybody. Then you need a medium Phillips screwdriver. What this is needed for is to disassemble the floppy drive, take it out of the case, but especially to loosen the screws on the stepper motor, which is here. Now what the stepper motor does, it moves the read-write head to these different tracks. It's that little clicking sound that you hear when you format the disk. Let's see, other things that are needed. Let's see, this is a little bottle of paint with a paintbrush. After we have finished moving the stepper motor clockwise or counterclockwise, once it has been set up with good alignment, then we put a little bit of paint on the bolts that hold it to the drive so that it doesn't get loose and move again. And by the way, if anybody has picked up floppies at the giveaway table, I'll be happy to align them for you right here at the conference. The only thing is you'll have to have a computer with you. I don't have any computer with me, but if you have a neighbor that's got one in the room and they're willing to let me be in there with you for 10 minutes, I'll do this for you. Another thing you need is to have standard disks which are considered to be well aligned. The way the author Charles Suter put it is it's relative alignment, that the alignment is relative to some disk that you have put in there. And the relative alignment should be done to high quality disks that were recorded on well-aligned disk drives. Where do you find these? I'd say the best source of them would be Apple's utility disks. These are some that I just picked up at the giveaway. And of course, I think everybody's got a little collection of these. I think Apple, when they were producing these disks and other software, check the alignment periodically to make sure that it's well done. I think other commercially prepared disks would also be good for it. I have brought my favorites with me on this trip, and they will be the drives or the disks that I use for testing yours. Okay. Oh, how well-aligned disks are identified? Well, commercial ones would be the best thing. Or disks that have been prepared, written on, that are on well-aligned drives. And but I would still use the commercial disks instead of the disk that's in your thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the floppy that I have given you is very well aligned, but I think the Apple disks are really the best ones to use. There should be high agreement between the numbers that you get from this commercial disk and this disk here. Okay, the procedure. Okay, you remove the floppy from. Let's see. Remove the floppy drive, I should say, from the casing. I've already done that with this one here. I've taken off the top cover and then I removed the bottom, and you can see the drive belt. And here is the stepper motor. Stepper motor is held in position by 2 bolts. You can see, well, let's see, there's one there, there's one there. You'll see it on the picture in the next couple of screens. You loosen the bolts. Well, first of all, I would measure it with the software before loosening it. It might still be in perfect alignment, and there's no reason to disturb that alignment unless it shows that it's off, unless the software just shows that it's off. So you play the software disk, selecting the Aptos alignment program. It'll spin for about a minute, and then it stops, and it'll show a screen. You'll see the screen right up here. Okay, there's close-up of what I'm just showing you here. By the way, when I was planning this, I was originally going to actually bring one of these and hook it up to a 2E and do it, but it's just that to get the really best alignment can easily take 10 or 15 minutes, and added that to my other explanation, we'd probably be running overtime. But anyway, here is one of the bolts down there on the bottom, and here is the other bolt. Those are to be loosened, but before you loosen them, I recommend to take a Sharpie bold marker and put a few marks on each of these little tabs that are held in by that bolt. You can see the marks there. A little harder to see it over here, but it's helpful to mark it in that way so that when you move it, you can kind of keep track of how much you've moved it, because it takes very, very little movement left or right to greatly modify the alignment numbers. It's very easy to overshoot it, in other words. Now, I've actually written on the bottom of this stepper motor that to make the numbers go more positive, you move it clockwise, or more negative, you move it counterclockwise. And I've even written that around, well, this stepper motor here. Let's see, here's, okay, just another picture. I was hoping I could get these marks a little bit clearer, but it doesn't look much different. Okay, let's see. There again, you can see there's the marks there and there. Here are these notes about more negative, more positive. What's more negative, more positive mean? You'll see it in the results on the computer screen. Oh, let's see, there's even another one. Okay, misalignment, how is that displayed? Well, there are numbers that are going to appear on the computer screen, and the numbers tell the direction of misalignment and also the degree of misalignment. In other words, if it's a negative number, that means it's too far, let's see, too far counterclockwise, or if it's a high positive number, it's too far in the clockwise direction. What we want to do is to get those numbers as close to 0 as possible by moving the position of the stepper motor slightly. Okay, now this is the title screen for the Aptos software. Since there's plenty of room on the disk, I just left the other programs on there. You might find them to be useful. I think 2C port analysis is for the unenhanced 2C, so if you've got an enhancement chip in, it'll probably show a lot of errors. But it's these two tracks here, alignment test and realignment instructions. I'd recommend first read my instructions on the front side of the disk, and then read Charles Suter's instructions, which are much briefer. Okay. Okay, this is the title screen to this software. And again, there's his name. Got to give him full credit. I mean, I'm not stealing his glory, but trying to show the importance of what he has developed. Okay, hit I for the instructions. That's for his instructions there. Also, you need caps lock switch downward for any of this to progress between the screens. This is the first page of his instructions. It does not measure absolute alignment of disk. It measures relative alignment between a drive and any diskette. So when you have well-aligned diskettes like these Apple ones, it shows how well the computer matches that. There's no standard results. However, we do expect the result to be useful in many situations. Okay, now this is one of the results screens. And as you do the realignment, you have to go through this a number of times. That is, say with several well-aligned disks. Okay, so you get slightly different results each time, but what we're looking for is a general pattern. Let's see, these differential fractions, let's see if it's a negative difference. It means, let's say, the drive is reading too much off the left side of the track, and if it's a positive differential fraction, you're reading too much from the right edge of the tract. And it should be within 0.4. If it is, then it's well aligned. Now this one is misaligned. Notice that all these differences are negative. That means that that stepper motor is too far in the clockwise direction, and after loosening those bolts, you move it very, very slightly in the opposite direction. Like negative means too positive, so you would move this a little bit. Let's see, I always have to think about this. A little bit in the counterclockwise direction. You could very easily overshoot, and then you have to redo it. Fraction right, this one should always be one. That means at least it did read every track. But if it's some number below 1.0, it means it's actually missed some of the data, and that probably would lead to a crash or a disk error of some type. So this one was actually reading okay, but it is out of alignment. So with these being too negative, we want to make it more positive. That means loosen the bolts, move it just a tiny bit in the clockwise direction. Okay, here's just another, let's say measuring from another different disk. Again, it's way too negative, and you'd want to loosen the bolts, move it just a little bit in the clockwise direction, tighten the bolts, and remeasure it. Okay. Now this one is very well aligned. This is what you hope to get. And if we got numbers like this, I would say let's tighten up those bolts and put the paint on them. You're not going to get it any better than that. Look at this one, minus 0.1. See, that's much smaller than 0.4. That is good alignment. And the same thing, this one, 0.05 and 0.12. This is the goal that we want to have. We just can't get it any better than that. Let's see, wait, there was something else. Let's see, going and coming, kind of odd vocabulary there. I think what that means is one of them means reading from the center of the disk to the outward part, and the other one is beginning at the outward part of the disk and reading inward. I can never quite remember which one is which, but they're in the opposite direction, moving from the center to the outside or moving from the outside to the center. This one here, notice that these are all positive. This one is sort of borderline. See, it's supposed to be within 0.4. That's a decimal right there, 0.4. 0.48 is pretty close. Even these are pretty close. It's reading all the tracks okay. You could get by with just leaving that one the way it is. Although, if you want to put in a little bit more time, you can get it closer and closer to the targeted value of 0.00. Okay, final testing, put it all together. Well, Once you've got those numbers as close to 0 or .00 as you think you can get it, then you tighten the bolts, put that paint on it to keep them from moving, and then put the thing back together, and then you're done. Okay, load some standardized discs, maybe test it again after everything is put together and the paint has dried. Maybe try the discs that have been crashing. Hopefully they no longer crash. Something I should have mentioned earlier is the drive in general must be in good working condition. In other words, if you got a bad analog card, this is not going to fix it. Okay, other things like analog card, the chips on the card, other things have to be working well. Okay, so like if you picked up a drive upstairs and it's missing the drive belt, this is not going to fix it. You got to replace the drive belt and get everything working again. Okay, that's it. Let's see, I think I have about 4 minutes. Are there any questions? Yeah?
Does that software do any check before it starts spinning the drive to see if it will, after it starts spinning the drive, to see if everything appears to be working correctly?
Well, I think that, let's see, I think that if you can load the disk and that, the other things must be working okay. Yeah, it's the drive's just got to be in general working condition, and this is kind of a refinement of just work. Because a lot of discs that are even slightly out of line will still play. If those numbers at the top are 1 and 1, it'll still read the disc, but it'll probably give trouble on some discs. If the disc was slightly out of line in the opposite direction, and then it might give trouble playing. But yeah, I think that a lot of them that have some misalignment will still play.
And a follow-up question: all of the half heights, duodisc, and full-size Apple drives, they all have the same kind of stepper motor with
yeah, with the bolts, yeah.
two screws.
Yeah, with 2 screws, always 2 screws. I do have a half-height one that doesn't even seem to have the bolts on it, but I can't remember what brand that was, but the half-height one is still very well aligned. I wish I could remember what brand it is, but yeah, your floppy drive here was recorded on a half-height drive that is pretty well aligned. Probably not perfectly aligned, but still I recommend that you get the Apple brand discs to use as the standards. You know, I mean, this one, I think that this is going to play on every well-aligned drive, but this would be a better one to use as the standard. Okay. Well, let's see, any other questions? Yeah?
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for attending. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'll finish a minute early. Okay.